welcome to the Beauty Shaman. And today I am so excited because we're talking about hormones and fitness and over 50 stuff that starts happening to our bodies. It's kind of crazy, right? So I have as my guest, Deb Atkinson, who is the author of, and I'll try not to blunder this, You Still Got It, Girl, the After 50 Fitness Formula book. There's a lot of F's in there. And she also has the website, flippin50.com, and I love that. I love that title, Deb. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and I love Flippin' 50. I just think that's one of the best. It's so double entendre. It's awesome.
Yes, and that's exactly right. 50% of my friends say this about it, and 50% say that. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it depends on your perspective, right? On how you
totally does.
Yeah, exactly. So I love this. I love the whole website. You have so many great things there for women to go and access when it comes to health and fitness and wellness, and just I'm going through it going, this is really awesome. This is really what it really interests me, like for where I'm at. I'm 52 and I think this is perfect. This is exactly the resource that every woman over 50 needs. So can you just talk a little bit about yourself, about how this kind of showed up for you doing this and how you started dealing with all these women like me? So how it kind of happened for you.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's a lot of dirt to that, but probably a lot of dirt started a long time ago when I was the youngest child raised by an older mom who remarried somebody older than her. So really I was around older adults all the way through growing up, listened to my older brothers and sisters' music. I was a wiser child, I was a wiser college student, and I always got the older adults, when we were doing practicums, and it worked. I was comfortable with them. They were comfortable with me. So there'd been a lot of research going on for 30 years before I really knew that this was what was going to happen. And of course, like we do, we get really interested in things when it's happening to us, right? So of course there's a little selfishness in there. But when I was 49, I purposely turned my life upside down and said, we've had some great success in the fitness industry. And I was in the Midwest, in the middle of a very conservative economy, in the middle of, a bad economy. And I said, if we can do this, we need to package these systems up. And I wanted to take my business online. So I left safety, security, and I was into that. And then suddenly realized the next day, I have college tuition in 8 months. What am I doing, right? And so I had a little panic attack and realized I had so much urgency that I went from hours, of exercise a day as a trainer, as a fitness professional, and as an endurance athlete. I like triathlon, and I like the long ones because I'd much rather go slow than fast, or my body would. So I, was chained to my desk, and I would exercise for about 20 minutes, and that was it. I would come back, but I started to get really focused, and simultaneously I was doing research on hormones, on high intensity exercise, because it was such a pivotal time. We were, wondering, is this going to lead to injury in the future, or is this really a smart thing? Because we were still starting to see that emerge. And so that was something I was curious about. So, all of that happening, I was my own subject of one, in a case study, but also was reading tons of literature. After about 14 months, I had made that one life change myself and ended up having about 8 others I had not banked on. And so it was a stressful time. So I was really, I was my target market. I was the women I'm talking to. You can't, I don't think, be just an expert and really get it. I thought I got them until I was living it. And then I thought, now I get it. Now I can understand it. So what happened to me though, in those 20 minutes I was doing, I was in better shape. The weight was the same. My body composition was the same, but I kept getting compliments like, you look great. What are you doing? And I'm like, hardly anything, but, that's the key. I think when you're doing less, you do it with purpose. There is no walking around in the gym for an hour looking at this. You don't do that when you have 20 minutes. You make every minute count. And, that's a big part of the difference. And what we've learned is hormone balancing is actually at its best when you're doing that. And so that not alone. So we also tend to be when a little is good, more must be better, kind of a nation. And so you can do it, a few times a week. You can also do strength training like that. But getting out and being in nature, long, slow walks or things you enjoy are also important. But it was a big pivotal time for me and so many women not finding help. A doctor who might say, well, this is menopause.
Right.
Like, it's downhill from here, baby. Just get used to it.
Well, I agree. I totally agree with you. And I love your story, because I think you kind of went through all of that. And I also had doctors go, it's just menopause. You're just going to get fat, accept it. And I have a lot of friends that are like, yeah, I'm going through menopause, and actually when I went through menopause, I'm still in the middle of it, but I gained 25 pounds like that. It just happened suddenly. And I was running every day. I was doing whatever. And it was like I'm a former mom. So me gaining 1 pound is huge, right? And that's my own struggles with, self-esteem and weight and things like that. But it was, it was like, holy crap, And I'm sure you talked to him like that. So maybe we could use that as a launching pad to talk about the hormone thing and the sudden weight gain. And you obviously managed it yourself by continuing to work out and dealing with your hormones. But I think that's a huge part of menopause. And so let's kind of go through that a little bit and what you've learned.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say to you too, I think, and that's big. I think to admit, that it happened to you, and I'm still in the boat. I'm in the boat with everybody else. There are things you can control, and there are things that, it's like Siri is on here calling the shots, and she's saying, well, we're going to take a U-turn. It's like, well, just a minute here. I got to catch up.
Right. Hold on. I didn't want to gain 25 pounds. Nothing fit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and, for you to say dealing with your own thing, I think every woman listening can identify. I mean, who's ever been complimented for, oh, you look so great, you've gained weight? Never. We've never done that. We're conditioned, right? So
it doesn't happen.
No, yeah. So true. So, there's certain things that definitely change. And I have a theory. It's not rocket science, but you don't change it if it's not broken, right? So if you were running and you were doing a certain schedule and it was working for you, great. Okay. Then no one needs to tell you to do anything. But when hormones do kind of throw you for a loop, or the U-turn, then it's time to take a look at, all right, there are some certain rules and guidelines. Even among us, we're very diverse, but here are ways that you can adjust. There are things that you can do to change the type and the timing of what you're doing when you get thrown, a right turn you hadn't thought was coming.
Right. So what about, you know a lot about hormones, so I kind of want to talk about, there's lots of different things available for hormones out there. Mm-hmm. The medical community has their shtick with that. And then there's the natural community. I tend to lean towards the natural just because that worked so beautifully for me. Literally within 2 weeks, I felt like a different person going the natural route. But a lot of people, it doesn't happen that way. A lot of people, it has no effect, or there's other things involved. It's complex, right?
Right.
So I'm interested in kind of your take on it with your experience with all the women you work with.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, right now I'm in the middle of a self-experiment. So I, after years of being away from Ironman, I've come back to it because I also think there's a joy factor, right? And I don't think, I've got some women in the community who love to exercise, and they love long endurance exercise. Telling someone they can't do what they love to do is probably not decreasing stress any. Right. So, I think we've got to find that blend of, the joy factor is
Right,
what I call it. So we've got to find that. So I came back to it and thought, okay, I'm going to test. So I did an Ironman last year. I pre-tested hormones and post-tested hormones, and I actually went on bioidenticals while I was training and found that my hormones actually had improved by the end, the post-testing. And I attribute that to the bioidenticals. I hadn't been on them when I pre-tested, and to the joy factor, the combination of things. So I'm actually training for one right now.
Oh, wow.
And I went off to see if I would trash them or what happened. So I'm kind of throwing myself under the bus.
Yeah.
And I suspect that I have trashed them a little. I'm just, by the way, I'm feeling by things happening to my skin. And so we'll see. So in about a month and a half, I'll test again. The post-test will be here and we'll find out. But I agree and find that it's very true. Some women mentally want to choose the natural route. And yet if you're open, I think it's wise to let's test everything that you have the power to control. If you don't get the results, it's not a weakness to step out and go for something else. But I think, a blend of natural and Western medicine is probably the best approach anyway. We want both pieces of wisdom.
Right.
And ultimately, you want to feel good, right?
Yeah.
Now and have good health later. I think we've got to factor that in too.
And I love that approach. I think it's so important as women that we trust our own bodies and we trust our own inner wisdom. And I love Christiane Northrup or Christine Northrup. You know what I'm talking about? She wrote the
Yep, I do. Yeah.
Wisdom. I love that book and I refer to it a lot. But one of the things I feel very strongly is that as women, is we have to trust and listen to our own body. And that's such an important strength to develop because you're going to have, especially going through menopause. I mean, I've been super healthy throughout my life. I've also been very thin throughout my life. And so suddenly to not have anything work was really threw me into kind of a hissy fit, right? A little temper tantrum. See it? Yeah. But I had to kind of slow down and go, wait, it's okay. Give yourself the grace of turning 50 and having a little, your booty being bigger and my chest got bigger. I mean, everything just kind of went like that, which was sort of humorous. But I think I had to learn, okay, what is that? What feels good for me, And so I did go the natural route because that did feel better and it did work for me. Now, not to say that it'll always work for me, but I think I've known other women that that's not the case. So I just think trusting our bodies, even with fitness, I mean, this is a whole area too. And maybe we could shift into fitness because I think that's obviously such your expertise here too, is the whole, and I do want to kind of flip back a little bit. You talked about how you loved doing the triathlons and all that. And I think that's so fabulous that you went back to it. Because I love to run. I mean, not that this whole discussion is about me, it's not, but, or maybe it is now. But the idea is I love running. I mean, I'll get out and run for 20 minutes. It's like I go to another place. It's such a happy feeling. And I cannot tell you the amount of trainers and people that I've dealt with, because I do a lot of on-camera talent that are fitness people. And they are like, oh my God, you shouldn't do that. And it's terrible for your knees and your hips. And you're going to notice all these issues. And finally one day I thought, no, I notice nothing. I feel amazing.
No.
My body loves doing it because emotionally I love doing it. And so I'm going to change a few things like how I run because I was running inappropriately. But in any case, I think it's important to do what you love as well and find things that interest you. So maybe you could talk just about fitness and, aging and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you brought up such a great point. It's very unique. It's individual, and so if you had been talking to those people and complaining about, this ache or that ache and then connecting the dot, then that's what you're doing. Totally different story. But yeah, I'm a big believer that, especially if you're on the thin side, you're loving it, you should probably continue to do it. I mean, one of the best things that probably anybody watching can be doing or should be doing if they flip 50 and they want to live really well longer and have a high metabolism is strength training. I mean, it's key to muscle for sure, but also bone, and that's not necessarily related to metabolism, but it starts to get, more top of mind than it ever was. Nothing sexy about bone density. So we didn't think about that when we were 20 or 30 or maybe even 40. But when we start to see our parents, and what may have happened to them posturally or, at the end of life with a break or a fracture, then it becomes a little bit closer to home. So huge. But strength training is so big for metabolism. We've been the generation that did cardio, right? That was our go-to.
Right.
Yeah.
But we need to be doing weights is what you're saying, or just strength, also weights, but like resistance training of some sort, right?
Resistance training. And I'm probably going to come across as, yes, I'm the weights girl. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of great tools and I see a lot of, body weight, but the key is you've got to reach fatigue. And if you don't reach fatigue, you're not actually going to be able to optimize the change in the muscle that happens between sessions. Yeah.
Maybe explain reach fatigue. There might be some people who don't understand that. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. So what I like to point out is there's a big difference between getting tired and reaching fatigue during a workout. So many of us are doing high intensity intervals. So that's a little easier. So when we know reaching fatigue there is getting so breathless that at the end of your 30 seconds or your minute, you need the break. You've reached fatigue. You're going to get a little break for a minute or so, and then you can come right back at it. Okay. So with weight training, fatigue is very similar in that at the end of every set, you should reach a repetition that you can't do another one or do it well. You're starting to cheat and recruit other parts of your body. It's when your shoulders will come up when you're doing something, and they shouldn't really. So it's finding overload, truly overloading the muscle that makes the change from one session to the next. It's the rest in between where the fitness actually happens. The exercise provides the opportunity for the fitness to happen. And then it's the recovery where the fitness happens.
Right. So women need to really get in the habit, maybe I should say, of pushing themselves to that point.
Exactly. And so let me clarify for anybody who's afraid of bulk or who's afraid of injury. At this point, we've led a good life and we've, carried kids, or we've run, or we've Zumba'd our way to a little knee niggle, or, just occasionally it's talking to you. Fatigue doesn't have to be done with heavy weights necessarily. So within the last 12 months, a study came out showing there's plenty of muscle adaptation that happens with lighter weights, but you will have to do more repetitions. So my top number, that I don't like to see anybody do a set of repetitions that goes beyond 28 or 30. You probably need to pick up a heavier weight if you're going that high, because a couple of things. I mean, you don't have time, right? Who has time to do 3 sets of 20 repetitions? That's a little time consuming than say 3 sets of 10. And so thinking logically about what will you do regularly and stick to it, that's a big one. And reaching fatigue, whether it's lighter weight, more repetitions, or heavier weight, fewer repetitions, either works. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the studies I've heard, and maybe we could just talk about this a little bit, is it's not all about just, okay, I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to go up. Like they were saying, count, like a 1, 2, 3, like count basically 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever, and then 10 seconds down as well. So it's not just the up and down movement, but it's a focused counting.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yes. So it's called tempo. So we can play with tempo in a lot of ways, and what you were referring to. So if we're doing it for 10 seconds, that actually is a protocol called super slow. And, you will find that if you have a weight, whatever that weight is for you, that you can go up and down, you've done X amount of repetitions. If you go, okay, I'm going to do this for 4 seconds coming up. I'm going to hold it at the top for 2 to 4 seconds, and then I'm going to lower down in 4 or more. You will find that weight suddenly becomes a lot heavier.
Yeah.
It's actually another good trick for those people who don't want to use a heavy weight and they feel vulnerable to injury, or simply, mentally we can't wrap our mind around doing heavy weights right now. That's okay. Go slower. You will still reach overload. And remember that that's the goal, however you get there. Yeah.
Now, what about things like doing cardio as well as weights? Because obviously I'm a cardio junkie. I like to get out and run. But I mean,
Yeah.
what is kind of the balance there with that? Because I don't want to go to the gym for an hour a day. I'm just not that. I'm never going to do that. Right? So what kind of do you recommend for women as far as the balance with that?
Okay. So in terms of times per week to do each? Yeah. Okay. So and that's a plus. So if anybody else was saying an hour, who has an hour? That's a good thing, actually, for your hormones. Those days of needing an hour are gone, and it's ideal. So if one of your excuses is, I don't have time to exercise, my question is always, how long do you think it takes? Because you can get a really, really good workout, weight wise for sure, in 10 minutes. You can do a good interval training session in 20. And of course we can always go longer, but you don't necessarily need to. And sometimes a little shot is better. So I just want to throw that out there, but ideally twice a week. So I'm starting with strength training. So I really want to get that one kind of at your top of your priority list. Twice a week, you want to strength train, right? And we've kind of always been in the habit, you may have heard, I thought it was 3. The icing on the cake, that's all that is. So we get about 75 to 80% of our results and reward from twice a week. So that third time is not enough to feel guilty about. And once you've crossed the threshold, if you're 50 and older, the recovery need is greater. So you may be more fit doing less frequent strength training, but having more rest in between. You'll be fresher. You'll be at less risk for injury when you come back at it. And you'll potentially be able to lift a little heavier or go to fatigue or go further to fatigue if you've had the rest. So like a Monday, Thursday schedule might be better than Monday, Wednesday, Friday was.
Interesting. That's actually very affirming, to tell you the truth, because I went running, I don't know, it was maybe a week ago. I ran for 20 minutes and I went to the gym and I did upper body, and I did the to exhaustion, or to, what do you call it, fatigue. The next day I was like, I can't do anything. Like I can't run. I can't go to the gym. I need to like sit and stare at the wall. Like my whole body was sore for some reason. I think I overdid the run as well. Like I went too fast or whatever. And I kind of felt guilty. So it's good to know, just don't worry about it. Like your body needs more recovery time. So that's a great pearl of wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. So cardio wise, I like to think of cardio as a potluck. So, I'm not going to pick on you, but I might be, okay, without trying.
Go ahead, pick on me.
What runners do or what walkers do often is, we get in this habit of, I've got a 3-mile loop and I like to do that every day. And we tend to go the same speed, the same distance, the same duration, and it's same. You have 3 energy systems in your body. And so, doing some of those interval training sessions where you warm up and you go hard for 30 seconds, you recover for a minute, you repeat that, for a total of 12 minutes, and then you cool down. That's a good energy system. You need to do maybe 1 or 2 of those a week, or throw them into the middle of a slightly longer run. And then the long run, kind of on the other end of that continuum, is relative to you. So it might be for you that a long run is an hour. Anybody else listening who's just starting out, a long run or walk might be 30 minutes because you haven't been doing that lately. So think relative to where you are today. It's your long. It's no predetermined long. And then in the middle, there's kind of what we call, if you're a runner, you identify that this is called tempo. A tempo run is a little faster than your slow, steady run where you could talk to somebody next to you. but it's not as high intensity as interval training. But it's one where I think, I need to have all my best tunes in my iPod, because we tend to slow down, right? If we don't have something keeping us going with a rhythm or a tempo. Treadmill can be really handy to do that, or do it outside with some good music so you can keep the tempo and keep it up there. But that potluck of 3 different kind of speeds or intensity levels, and you could be doing that on a bike or an elliptical or wherever you prefer to do it. But that's a much better blend. And overall, fitness level wise, you're going to be much better off. Mentally, you might also be more engaged. It's not the same every day.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great advice. I totally relate to that, to kind of tuning out. And I just put my, neoclassical music on and stare at the birds and, rather than, okay, wait, let me do that. And I love that. I think that's really great advice. So this is all, wonderful. And I think women finding kind of a schedule that suits them with their fitness. I have some very good friends that, went through menopause and gained all kinds of weight and just got discouraged and just couldn't get it. They would go exercise a little bit and they just would get so discouraged. And I think, what is kind of your advice for women who are in that space? Like not somebody who just feels like, man, I'm just so frustrated right now with this.
Yeah. 2 things. One is, you've got it figured out. You know what you love.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the frustrations. So when you're in that spot where you want help like yesterday, and I think I just talked to a subscriber and she said yesterday would be good, right? Yeah. Give me results right now. But it's the frustration, and then you reach for what burns the most calories, what burns the most fat, and it's not necessarily something you enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's not a way to kind of get yourself hooked. We want you as fitness professionals, we want you to become codependent. So yes, we all get off the couch because we want to look better in the jeans. My mom at 91 does that, right? She's not asking me to show her something so she doesn't fall. She said, could you help me with this? And she's patting her belly. Are you kidding me? Okay. It's never going to end, girls.
Yeah.
So I think starting with joy, something you enjoy. And, I know that may be a struggle for some listeners, but is there a way that then you can do it with a friend? So you at least enjoy the time, with that friend, or you enjoy the time outdoors or with good music. Maybe for you, it is binge watching something on television while you are exercising, that otherwise you don't get the time to do. But I think finding a way to couple something that you enjoy so that it becomes, a reward to look forward to it. Because if you're dreading it and only looking at the transformation that may not come for 6 months, it's hard to get motivated. And the other thing that I think is really the bottom of a lack of frustration or a source of frustration is lack of clarity. It's hard to be motivated when you don't feel like, here I am, here's where I want to be, and feel like what you're doing is going to connect the dots for you. Right. When you doubt it, you're going to lose your motivation quickly. So I think get clarity, get a voice that you trust, and then stop listening to everything else for a while. You may end up going a different route, but I think you've got to follow one voice for a bit to get clarity. Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think for me, I get stuck in my inner head of, see, your thighs are the same size. You've been working, you know what I mean? and then I stop and go, no, wait. How long have you been doing those squats? Like, let's think, when did you, okay, stop. Like, you almost have to really keep yourself in that, okay, this is going to work because, we're trusting a professional like yourself or whatever it is. So no, I think that's true. No, let's shift over into diet, because I think diet, obviously you can't eat potato chips and still do your squats and look good. We're in our 50s. It's, diet matters, man. It matters. So And yet the word diet kind of is a 34-letter word. So
Yeah.
let's go there and on about diet and what you recommend for women over 50.
Oh yeah, I'll probably come back to, because I loved that you said, and I didn't acknowledge it when you said, listening to our bodies is really important. One of the things we do really early in any of my programs is, I have people slow down on exercise, cut way back in order to figure out, am I really hungry? Am I tired? Or am I thirsty? Because we have, as women, been listening to a lot of other people that we caregive for or serve for a long time. And so tuning back in is sometimes hard. It's a first step. But when you realize that we've been settling maybe for, poor digestion or poor sleep or stress, that really is probably very related to diet. And, as a fitness professional, when we look at what's going to make somebody successful and what's going to help them get started feeling better, right? You have to feel better to start feeling better, to do the next step. And we make so many more food decisions per day than we ever will exercise decisions. So we do need to get this one right, but it's changed. I think in this last couple of years, certainly in the last 4, since, I've been online and diving into this, we know we have a different, we all have a unique biochemistry. Foods don't affect us the same way anymore that they did when we were younger. They don't affect each of us, you and I, the same quote unquote healthy food. It may not be healthy for me right now, and it may be for you. It takes testing, and you can do that 2 ways. We can lab test, but you also have a lot of information right here in this lab, of yours. We've settled for poor digestion. We've sometimes settled for things that are showing up. So it's looking at what's that list of, that I'm tolerating that really shouldn't be there. And much of that is often related to food. So it's looking at, emotionally what's going on, what triggers food or hunger or cravings. And then it's also really looking at the food differently. It's not, what we grew up with thinking this is healthy. It all needs to be tested again. I mean, your stress level, your hormones, your exercise level, all of that changes how well you digest and how you digest food. So, what happens today and works for you, in 6 months may not, because all of those things could have changed.
No, I think that's very wise. And I love just the individual approach to it. And one of the things I did, just to bring it back to my own practice, because I think this is relevant. I've tried a lot of different things, a lot. And I've went on the blood type diet, and I'm an A negative blood type. And that diet, because I used to be a vegetarian, and that blood type diet is it says, look, you need to be I should be a vegetarian, but I can't be a vegetarian anymore because of my gut problems. So I eat chicken and fish, and once a month I'll have a hamburger because once a month I want a hamburger. But otherwise I stick with the chicken and fish, and or just as I'll be vegetarian for a couple of days and then I'll go ahead and have some chicken. So, and that tends to work really well for me. I know that if you give me a steak though, I'm going to really struggle because A, I don't really care for it. And B, I can't digest it very well. It doesn't make me feel good. And then my best friend is an O blood type. She wants to eat steaks every night. Like she just loves it. And for her, that works really well. And she was training for a marathon. And I think, well, good for you. Knock yourself out, man. So I don't know. Have you seen anybody do that diet, or is there a specific diet? Or are you just like, look, you got to figure out what works for you. There's no specific one.
Yeah. I tend to be the latter. I think it tends to be eclectic, and you just described it, really. We like structure. I think we like the structure of a diet. And, there's a saying, and I use it a lot, that structure gives you freedom, right? I find I've got a lot of times in my courses, a wide continuum of women. There are some who are like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I don't want to have to think, but then others, I'll give them what to do, and they'll be like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to color outside the lines. I'm doing my own thing. And they're both fine. Right. But I do think we've got to not be codependent. So I think co-collaborating with, here's a blueprint, whether it's like the blood type diet, or you start with Mediterranean, or you start with whatever, and then look at and listen, so I love that you said, I started out being vegan. I've had this conversation with someone really recently, and it's funny. I mean, food is emotional. So people get emotional and defensive and offensive pretty quickly. Never ever at Thanksgiving with your family bring up bread, right? Or gluten or wheat. Just don't.
Yeah,
okay?
GMOs. Yeah. I know.
But
we don't talk about that.
Yeah. So I think if you pay attention to what is happening, what's my energy level? I tried to become a vegan. I think, who hasn't read the China Study, Forks Over Knives? And there's a lot of good content in there to buy into, but I was losing strength and, did the same workout, was really hard. Excuse me. I was breathless when I shouldn't have been breathless. And so when I reintroduced animal protein, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
I think a shift to plant, like you said, a couple days a week, and then coming back, and whether you do that or you take a few weeks and try to do much more heavy plant, it ends up being like a natural detox. I think our bodies can use that. And yet it's all about, what really works for you. And that's always my recommendation. Someone will say, well, can I do this? I'm vegan. And I always ask, did you consciously just decide to be vegan, or did your body tell you that's how it feels best? And let's look at, are you open to figuring out, how you respond better? And let's just figure out in a blueprint way, systematically, kind of methodically testing one thing at a time, so we know what happens. A lot of people will say, I've tried everything. But a lot of times when we say that, we've tried them randomly or maybe in tandem with another one, and we don't really know which one worked and which one didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very true. And I think you do have to be very deliberate about it, especially, I've noticed now that I'm, flipping 50, is that it has to be more deliberate, and things affect me a lot more. Like I actually don't ever eat sugar. I've never been a sugar person. I don't crave it. I just, I could go without sugar for like years and I don't really care. But I've noticed that if I have, in the past I would eat a little sugar and go, oh, yeah, that don't feel so good, whatever, keep going. But now it like flattens me, because I think it's just, I'm so much more sensitive that when I eat sugar, like, a piece of chocolate or whatever, I know I'm going to go up and then I'm going to go smashing down. It's like a little bit down. And I thought, gosh, it's incredible. My body is just so much more in tune with what I'm putting in it. So I'm much more careful about it. And I think I have to be super deliberate. And I think that effort to do that, and that extra effort, I think it's almost like you have to just decide, okay, this is going to be an extra effort. I have to really be so much more cognizant. I'm not in my 20s. I can't just flop around, and do whatever. I have to really if I'm going to really take care and love my body, then that is what I need to do. So even though it's harder.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a little piece of us always, whether it's exercise or it's nutrition, that we kind of always want to go back to that time when it was easier, when we didn't have nearly the stressors, that we do now on our plate. And I think that's a piece of defaulting, to that old way occasionally. But yeah, I do agree. And I've got a lot of people who will say, finally, now I'm able to think about, here are the choices. How is that going to make me feel?
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think not just physically feel, but it's mental, it's emotional, it's everything. I mean, I notice, if I eat crap food for a week or even a couple days, mentally I'm just not as sharp. Or if I eat too much, I mean, I don't know, that's like a weird thing. I'm kind of careful not to overeat, because if I overeat, my brain just kind of like goes, yeah, okay, I want to go to sleep now. So I really careful to kind of hover on that line, of full. So it's so weird. I I never was like that, but I think just those intrinsic little physical things, it's, I think it is like just letting go of the past. Like, okay, I'm in my 50s. It's different now.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. But different, I think, we have to remember different can be better.
Right.
I think
That's a great point.
Yeah. When you switch, from one diet, and by that, yes, yeah, I think we're all on the same page. It's, a way of life, to another, it gives you an opportunity to try things you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think we're at least more willing and open to do that today, which is kind of cool.
Good. And there's so many great options out there too.
Yeah.
There's almost too
Yeah.
many great options, but I think, it's finding that, that one. So yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just end with, give me an ideal fitness regime for one of your clients. They come in and they just need like an ideal, I mean, obviously this is very quick and basic, but would you say, I'm just curious, like you say, okay, you have 1 week, this week we're going to run, or we're going to power walk on X day, Y. I'm just wondering, because for people listening, they're thinking, okay, what are we talking here? So I'd love to get that from you. Yeah.
Okay. So, let's just take somebody who is, I'll give you an example. So I think we need a little back history. Okay. So when I first met Jennifer, she was over exercising, which may be an anomaly to somebody listening, but it was really hard for her to not exercise because she was just kind of hell bent on losing weight. She had a significant amount of weight to lose, and raised in this era that, the harder you work, the better results you will get. Right. And we all have taken that to heart so much that we overdo quite often. And yet, we overdo, we overeat, yet we're undernourished, and, we're really not better fitness because we're doing it. So she was taking no days off. So that was the very first thing we did with her schedule, is said, okay, this is your rest day. I mean, we're not doing any walking or anything on this day. You can be an active person, but there's no exercise. So a rest day is really important. So whatever day that works out better for you to be. And if you're a busy working woman, it may be that you want to take advantage of your weekends to exercise, and that may not be a day off. So maybe Monday, is a crazy day otherwise. So it's your exercise free day, maybe, but you need to pick that. And the point is, you're going to always have, a plan on a day is based on what happened the day before and what happened the day after. It really matters, right? So if we said Monday was the day off, then we would also say, okay, let's do strength training on Tuesdays, and let's do strength training again, say, on Friday. All right. So we've got a couple of choices when you're making a schedule. You can either do fewer days of exercise and do both your cardio and your strength training on the same day, or you can do shorter amounts of time on most days of the week and do cardio and then do strength and cardio and strength. So most women that I'm working with prefer the latter, a little bit on every day. And it's kind of good for habit forming as well. I mean, that this time of day is always kind of, that's it. That's my exercise time. Or maybe it's my yoga time, or my coffee time, my me time, if you're having an off day, but it's habit forming that way. And it's less so if it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing. So, so if we were having strength training Tuesday and Friday, then I would say, let's do some interval training. So on Wednesday and on Saturday, and Sunday, let's have you go for a long walk, or you're playing 18 holes of golf that day. Good. Walk, pull your cart, or carry it. Totally up to you. But whatever it is that's long, that you enjoy, that you love. So you and I are out here in Colorado, we might go for a long hike, but it's not necessarily based on heart rate. It's not necessarily based on distance or length of time. It's based on, this is fun. I'm enjoying it. It's an adventure. It's an experience. And that is so hormone balancing. Even though you're going slower, you're not necessarily quote unquote burning calories. If it helps you reduce cortisol, it may actually help you lose weight a lot faster than something that burns calories faster. So we need to keep that in mind.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then that Wednesday may be an anomaly, kind of a wild card. So just a moderate kind of a workout. Maybe it's cross training, it's Zumba, it's some other type. So as we've said, the long or the interval training, you can do that anywhere. So if you've got joint issues, that can happen in the swimming pool or on a bike or a rower or elliptical, somewhere where there's no impact, and if you're otherwise A-okay, you can do that any way you prefer.
Yeah. That's great. And that sounds very doable. Like, I think that, and it's very practical, and it has a lot of variation to it. And I love the idea of, okay, this is my time when I exercise, whatever it's going to be, I have my set time. And I think that's fabulous too, because we have so much going on in our lives, right? I mean, I feel like everybody I know is packed, right? The minute you get up to the room, it's so much.
Yeah.
And so it's okay, let's just schedule this in and kind of go with it. So I love that. That's really practical.
Yeah, it is. And it's back to that structure gives freedom.
Yeah.
So nobody's saying you can't move those days around, and shuffle them a little bit, or 2 on 1 because I'm going to be traveling on this day, but having it there is always better. You can move an appointment a lot easier than you can get one in the first place. Right. Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, Deb, this has been great. This has been very helpful and constructive, and I'm all inspired, and I'm going to go do my weights now. And
awesome.
I actually really like doing weights. I mean, I don't know, a lot of people like it. I like it. I think it's fun, and I love you see results pretty fast too. I
was just going to say, it's the fastest way to see change. And cardio will make some changes in your body, but you will end up being maybe just a smaller version of exactly what you were. Yeah. You can't reproportion or reshape anything, but with weights, you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started doing upper body, I know we got to go here, but I started upper body, and I had this little dangly thingy right here, right? And I started doing more upper body, and seriously, within 3 weeks, it was gone. I was like, damn, I'm good. I'm
doing that.
Okay, because running doesn't do anything for that, So no, I love it. I think it is fun, and I think if you go into the gym, and I just act like I'm one of the guys. I'm like, yeah, get out of my way. That's my weights, because the guys are all in there sweating and trying to be cool, and I'm like, yeah, get away from me.
And actually, yeah. So that's such a great point too. I mean, we are actually very intimidating. If you walk in there like you know what you're doing, you just have to act like you do.
Yeah,
you don't
act like it, even if you have no idea. I'm like, I don't know what weights, but I'm going to try that. All right, here we go.
Are you kidding? A menopausal woman walks in there, they are scared.
That's true, man, because we have that don't mess with me, right?
I know, right?
Just put it in there. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deb. This has been great.
Thanks for having me. Great to chat with you.
Yes, and I look forward to off a bit, to other conversations too with you on my channel. Whoa.
Went down the wrong side, right?
Edit that one out. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for watching The Beauty Shaman.